welcome to Stanton Chase LA podcast, where executive workplace meets real life. And I'm Dr. Nancy Jernigan, an executive search consultant with Stanton Chase, Los Angeles. And we're discussing workplace issues, real life issues, things that our Stanton Chase LA team have been through. And today I'm chatting with Bill Brewer from our Stanton Chase LA office. Bill and I have worked on a number of higher education and nonprofit searches together. And so, Bill, welcome today.
Thanks, Nancy. It's great to be here.
So let's just jump into a discussion. Let me ask you some questions about what you're experiencing is relevant today. So what are you seeing are the most relevant issues challenging human resources leadership today?
Oh, great question. It has clearly shifted with the start of the pandemic, and we saw, through the start of the pandemic, a high level of sensitivity to the HR needs of an organization. Thus, the CHRO, the human resources leader, was put front and center on hot topics. So we did see a shift of HR maybe being a compliance area to, hey, we need really good, solid strategy from human resources. And that is morphed into, as we come out of pandemic mode and into maybe a little bit of a different way of operating, that has morphed itself into a key strategic area. So we have a workforce, a lot of CEOs who maybe thought was not productive unless they were in the office, having the realization that their workforce is actually maybe even more productive not being in the office. And so, human resources having to manage through that approach. Coming from that comes then, okay, if you have people not physically in the office, more focus on digital transformation for human resources.
Right.
That's a couple of issues.
Do you mean tech when you talk about that? Do you mean tech, digital? Tell me what you mean about digital.
Yeah. So anywhere from just human resources operations, processing of employee needs, the simplest from just an address change or a banking change, and to performance management, really understanding, okay, are our employees being truly productive? How can we track that electronically? And find areas, maybe gap areas where maybe additional training or resources needed to be deployed to further support this remote workforce.
Great. That makes perfect sense. Well, data analytics are just rising to the importance all across all functions as well as industries. So that would make sense that that's critical in human resources as well. And so what are some of the pressing people issues, the challenging HR people issues versus the digital or data analytics?
Well, the biggest one is what we call the Great Resignation. It's front and center with everybody.
Right.
It is incredibly difficult for across industries for people to find talent and fill empty roles that they have. So, a lot of people, I think, have rethought. The general employee workforce has rethought a little bit about work-life balance issues and are they actually doing the roles they want to be doing? How were they treated also through the pandemic period?
Yeah, good.
As an employee, and asking themselves, is this really the right place for me to be working? And actively looking for new opportunities, also to the extent of looking to do just something different in the career.
Right.
I think a lot of the hourly type of roles that are closer to minimum wage, you have a huge chunk of people that learned to make money a different way because their jobs weren't there on the front end of the pandemic, and so those are a tremendous vacancy we're seeing throughout the retail world as just one example, but we're seeing it also in other industries as well, and people making changes. I think another component that's out there is a bigger focus on the multi-generational workforce.
Good. Yes. Got it.
And from one end of being able, if roles are going unfilled, can I tap into people who might have even shifted into retirement mode to bring them back into the organization? Also, to leveraging some people who are at the front end of their career, jumping into particular roles, and dealing with a multi-generational workforce. You have issues around how people just work or learn to work and prefer to work, and having to work together on the same team as being an issue out there.
Yeah, I can see that would affect training, like under a CHRO, all the training that needs to happen in the different departments, the different areas of an organization, and then considering the age group that you're dealing with. That affects training, not just abiding by all the regulations that need to happen. Right.
And getting, and how you get those employees trained when in some situations it's best to have them actually in-house, and having to shift that further into the digital side of training. Good.
Well, what other thoughts come to mind, the things that are on your desk and things you're dealing with as an executive search consultant?
So, well, I think, whether, and I guess I've spoken a lot about maybe changes that have hit us with the start of the pandemic. I would say pre-pandemic, just a little bit pre-pandemic, a little bit of a shift on a CEO's mindset to what HR brings to the table. And I alluded to before, there's a lot of organizations that look at HR as, just keep me out of trouble, keep us compliant. And I will, as the CEO, I'm going to spend my time, elsewhere with the senior leadership team. To more of, HR is a key player in the whole issue around attract and retain the talent. So, three things come to mind around what CEOs are looking for out of their head of HR, and it is a high performance mindset out of that person.
Good.
Their capabilities that they are bringing in through their experiences, and not only working within that industry, but maybe from other industries. And it's the diversity of thought that is coming into the table. And then also acting as an executive advisor and influencer to the CEO. Those three themes, I think, are big themes of from what CEOs are looking for.
Wow. Yeah. That makes perfect sense. Whereas I think that shift has happened over time, but then it made a big leap right before the pandemic and then through this pandemic. I've seen it, just watching you and our team and working on HR searches too, that really the significance of the CHRO on that senior leadership table is significant, not just in one area, but in multiple areas.
Yes. I'll one more piece to it is, I think the CEO and the C-suite has built up a greater value to how just employees are treated.
Yes.
And my background, Nancy, I'm a former Disney person. So I've worked for Disney for a number of years, way back when. And I was just having lunch actually with a former colleague from Disney, who's an executive at another company, and we actually experienced just a smidgen of bad customer service. But together we said, Disney did that to us. This drives us nuts when we see bad customer service. But that got us into a really good conversation about how HR has really stepped up, or at least needs to, in some organizations, step up its customer service to the employee and be a little bit less one size fits all, to really catering to very specific individual needs all through the organization and be responsive that way.
Wow, that's a great point. I see that shift happening too. So that's really great to call that out. And give a few other examples of what that could look like, if you can just think of one or two. What's that look like to give amazing customer service in an organization?
Well, I'm of the position that, if you put the employees first, and this might sound counterintuitive, versus the customer first, what happens is you build a great employee workforce who will reflect that on the customer. So it translates right back into that world. But
Yes.
I encourage companies all the time to really focus on a great employee experience, making it a best place to work, a place of choice, and take away from that. I may want to leave here for something else. The grass may be greener. To how could the grass be greener? This place is awesome. The way they treat me, and they listen to. I actually had a small individual need, and they listened to that and addressed it fairly.
Wow. Love that. That sounds great. So maybe we can jump on to a little bit about yourself. Tell us and the audience about Bill Brewer that we may not know.
I'm not sure what you may or may not know. I've been married a little over 30 years now.
Great.
My wife and I live here in Orange County and love it. We've been here for 30 years during our entire marriage here in Orange County. But I've got 3 wonderful kids off the payroll, one married, one soon to be married.
Right.
My background, I just really quick, as I worked early in my career for Fluor Corporation, always by the way in human resources, but for Fluor Corporation and then the Walt Disney Company. Those were my my baby HR days, and those 2 companies gave me a ton of great experience. I moved on from Disney to join at 3 different companies over the next stretch of my career, over about 10 years or so, leading human resources. So in that top HR role over at Insight Health Corp, then at Epicor Software and Alorica. But I have a huge passion, and I learned through this HR career, I have a huge passion for working with those senior leaders about having really the right talent in the seats, leveraging people's strengths, maybe repurposing people that aren't able to leverage their strengths into something different for the organization, but really optimizing that.
Right. Well, that'll make sense. We talk about how at Stanton Chase LA we have the white glove service, and it sounds like we both actually have been trained from organizations who ask us to deliver that with employees and our clients, that white glove service. And I think that's one of the highlights of what we try to do at Stanton Chase LA.
Yeah, I think another thing that's just a huge factor with that service. So there's 350 of us around the world with that white glove service mindset. But as our rule of thumb, Nancy, that we're always going to partner internally with one other senior level person on every search. So it's just not the one person, which and sometimes some companies will disappear and hand it off to a junior person. It's always with us at Stanton Chase, 2 senior level people working on every search, and that is turns into incredible results for our clients.
Right. Good. Well, thanks for taking the time today, Bill. It was great to chat. Any last thoughts before we say goodbye and jump off?
No, this has been great. Thank you for inviting me. I really appreciate being able to chat with you on this a little bit.
Great. Well, our audience, keep an eye out for other interviews from our podcast, and we hope to see you again.